Marshall in the middle.
Welcome to another installation of the NBC Room.
Heck yeah.
Here with Big Dog, Nate Aganaga, Top, Will, Marshall, First Sergeant retired. How y'all guys doing this evening?
I'm doing good, man.
Great, man. Great.
Man,
A couple storms here and there, but we're good, man.
Yeah, man, I'm sitting through one right now myself. I'm hoping that we don't have any Wi-Fi issues. Man, last week been a crazy week for me. I haphazardly just ended up locking the property under contract, a couple acres, man. Me and the wife, we grabbing another property, and it's perfect for all my trucks and all my equipment, and my dogs, and we probably have some livestock out there. So, yeah, man, it's a beautiful little situation that we're adding to the legacy, man. Top, you got a Tesla going, man.
Yeah, we went, and I tell you what, the full self-driving world is really neat. I went and picked up my mom today, and we kind of went on a road trip, just riding around, letting the Tesla drive us where we wanted to go. And we laughed. We told, Grok to tell us jokes, and I told Grok to write a poem about how beautiful and amazing my mom was, and she just giggled. We had so much fun. We did. So, awesome. We're enjoying the Tesla. Awesome. Absolutely.
That's awesome. It's a great car, man, and, a great company. The funny part about it is the things we're going to talk about today kind of touch on some of the stuff that happened with Tesla last year, when Elon Musk was going with Doge and all of these lefty communists, they were out there torching Teslas and bombing Tesla dealerships and all this extra shit that I don't get it, man. And I got a speech from Marco Rubio. I'm gonna play in a little part of it. We're not gonna play a lot of it, but he touches on this, and I guess it's just ironic that we've been talking about this here on the show for at least 3-4 months now of the communism and capitalism debate and the back and forth left right, and it's finally starting to get some real motion globally, actually, and Marco Rubio is addressing this at this panel, so I want to highlight that. But before we do jump into that directly, we got two fallen soldiers I want to highlight. If Top, you could bring up my screen. I got them posted here. On the left, we have Sergeant Michael Emmanuel Swinton, and on the right, Sergeant Angel S. Rampersad. Sergeant Angel Rampersad, she was hit by some rocket attacks in Jordan at a base we got in Jordan by Iran, and Sergeant Emmanuel Swanson, he was killed due to some Iranian drones in Iraq, actually. So not too different than things that we've personally probably encountered with friends and old battle buddies that we dealt with, whether it was mortar attacks, IEDs. It's a sad situation, man, with all of that going on, and my heart goes out to.
Yeah, for sure. My heart goes out to him too.
Am I there?
Yeah, there you came back. You're back now.
Okay. Yeah. But I was just saying that my heart goes out to the family, and these soldiers paid the ultimate price. I hate that it had to happen like this. This is a tragedy. They look so young. I remember when I first got my Top. Didn't you pin my first E5 stripes on me?
I think so. I guess so.
Yeah, you pinned my stripes on me. I remember I was a young buck sergeant, fresh in the face and bright and bushy-tailed, and I could see that in these guys' eyes, and it's kind of sad seeing that they didn't get to fulfill their career or their destinies, and I just pray that their loved ones can move forward and go with this. With that being said, Nate, sounds like we are exactly where we thought we was going to be with this Iran situation. Huh?
Yes, sir. We are exactly where we said we were going to be about maybe a month ago. We were talking about this, ceasefire, but it's not going to happen.
Yeah.
They're going to keep pissing them off too, man.
Right. It's sad, man. Right. It's sad because I was hoping, I was optimistic in the fact that maybe they could just, lick their wounds and go off into the sunset, and we could just keep, we didn't have to have no concrete, okay, we're buddies now. I didn't expect any of that, but for it to take this radical turn, one thing I will say is I got to give credit where credit is due to First Sergeant. You called it, like, you're right that we should have tried diplomacy as long as diplomacy was available. And secondly, I got to give credit where credit is due to Trump for having the patience to even try. And I don't think nobody's giving him that type of credit, because people on my side of the aisle are more of the hawkish type, a lot like the late great Lindsey Graham. We're going to talk about that too, and how that all of that ties in today's show. So before we get a little deeper into that, I want to go ahead and get straight to addressing what I see is the direct issue we have coming up with our country. Personally, what we have dividing us and pushing us towards conflict internally, because it's not just international problems that we got to worry about. In my opinion, yes, granted, we're at conflict with other countries. There's some issues going on, but our biggest battle is us. It's us versus us. And that's the saddest battle. That's the worst battle. And here we go. If you share my page, I got an article these guys are talking about, just recently happened. I'm gonna play this and let them talk about it so you guys can get where we're coming from.
No sound. No sound.
All right. One more try.
Nate, you look all studious with your glasses on, man.
I'm trying.
I tried now.
I'm getting old, man.
I love it.
Here we go.
All right.
This is ICE offices.
Sound?
A former U.S. Army soldier was arrested this morning in New York City after officials say he ignited a fire outside a federal building that houses ICE offices.
Video shows that suspect lighting the fire fueled by an accelerant. 3 people suffered minor injuries. The FBI says the suspect was carrying anti-ICE propaganda and he was armed with an airsoft rifle and other weapons. Fox 4's Casey Stiegel in the newsroom tonight with a look at escalating violence surrounding immigration enforcement. Casey.
Steve Heather, investigators say this was not simply a protest that spiraled out of control. Rather, the FBI calling it a targeted attack, and it is also not an isolated one. Investigators say 43-year-old Andrew Arabaka poured gasoline on the ground, ignited a large firework, then fired 5 to 7 airsoft pellets toward the federal building this morning in Lower Manhattan. 3 people suffered minor injuries. Authorities say he also had 2 axes, a hammer, a machete, and 3 knives. Ultimately, federal officers tackled the man and took him into custody. The FBI says he was carrying anti-ICE material, and FBI agents described him as an anti-government extremist. A retired FBI agent says to telling Fox 4 the case reflects a broader shift from the right to exercise free speech to something far more dangerous.
Some people, take protests to a different level, and using weapons, explosives, or any kind of violence is certainly not correct.
So the New York incident adds to a growing pattern of hostility at ICE facilities nationwide in the wake of 2 recent shootings, one in Houston, the other in Maine, where an ICE officer shot and killed a person. Then last week, someone fired into an ICE office in Phoenix. No one was hurt there, and no arrests have been made. Here in North Texas, we've already seen 2 deadly or near deadly cases, including last year's sniper attack at the Dallas ICE field office, where 3 people died, including the gunman, plus the armed ambush months before at the Prairieland Detention Center in Alvarado. Federal officials say the New York suspect did not have previous run-ins with law enforcement, or only a few minor ones. Nothing to this level, though. Official charges are forthcoming.
All right. One more clip.
Agriculture Secretary Brooke Rollins, part of.
We have that intro kind of spoke directly to what Rubio is pointing out here. He's at this get together from heads of states all over the world. As Secretary of State, he gives a riveting speech about communism resurging and the political terrorism that arises with it. All right, so I'm gonna play this real quick, about 5 minutes, and we'll get into it.
This was something worse than a double standard. Left-wing violence was not just excused, it was treated as sacrosanct, a protected class unto itself. That era has to end.
Amen.
The coalition in this room today includes political leaders and experts and law enforcement officials from more than 60 countries across the world. You have come here from a wide range of governments, parties, and political persuasions. Some of your governments and ours disagree publicly. Sometimes we disagree sharply about trade, about energy, about immigration. You did not come here today because you have been persuaded on every single aspect of the American view of the world. You came here. You are here because 2 weeks ago, a 72-year-old woman was burned on over 80% of her body in her own home in Greece, and she died, executed by a firebomb because her daughter dared to stand for office. You are here today because for 5 days this winter, the lights went out in Berlin, the longest blackout in the city since the Second World War, sparked by an attack that left tens of thousands of households without power in the freezing cold and left an 83-year-old woman dead. You are here and you came because a month after that Berlin blackout, a French 23-year-old succumbed to traumatic brain injuries, beaten to death on the streets of Lyon by a group of far-left militant thugs. You are here because your political leaders are being attacked and stabbed and shot in your streets, because your businesses have been bombed, because your railways have been sabotaged, because your police officers have been beaten and burned. You are here because this is real, and it is getting worse, and it can no longer be denied, and it can no longer be ignored, because it is time to crush this evil forever. The simple fact is, none of this that I've just described is new. Far-left political terrorism is not a recent day modern novelty. It is not a fiction manufactured by conservative politicians. For most of the modern era, it was in fact the dominant form of political violence. Every one of our friends here from the nations of the Western Hemisphere remember the decades of kidnappings and bombings and assassinations and executions, the violent terror of the Tupamaros, of the Monteseros, of the FARC, of the ELN. You remember the inhuman savagery of Peru's Shining Path, the Maoist fanatics who massacred the peasant villages of Peru, hacking pregnant women and newborn infants to death with axes and machetes. You remember the tens of thousands of Marxist guerrillas trained to kill in Castro's terrorist camps. All of you here from Europe remember. You remember the machine gun massacres of Italy's Red Brigades, which held the 5-time prime minister captive for 55 days before subjecting him to a revolutionary so-called people's trial and executing him in 1978. You remember the Red Army faction's nearly 3-decade campaign of bombings, kidnappings, and assassinations in Germany, murdering dozens and injuring hundreds more. You remember the 17 November organization in Greece, the Marxist extremists that terrorized Athens for more than a quarter century, including, by the way, shooting my country's CIA station chief dead outside of his home, in front of his wife, as they were returning home from a Christmas party. And here in America, we remember. We remember the same reign of deadly terror, justified by the same slogans, motivated by the same wicked ideas. We remember the Weather Underground, which bombed the Pentagon, which bombed the State Department, and bombed the Capitol. We remember the Black Liberation Army, which staged armed robberies and executed police officers at point-blank range. We remember the Symbionese Liberation Army, which shot a public school superintendent to death with cyanide-packed hollow point bullets. In one 18-month period between 1971 and 1972, the FBI counted some 2,500 bombings on American soil, a rate of nearly 5 a day. The overwhelming share of that violence came from left-wing extremists. Between 1970 and 1980, 93% of terrorist attacks in the West came from the far extremist left. These are numbers that would shock most Americans today because we've been taught to believe that this kind of political violence, it simply doesn't exist or it's being exaggerated. But it does exist, and we're actually underestimating it. And our nations bear the scars to prove it. And today we face a new wave of this old evil. Here in the United States, the share of left-wing terrorist attacks and plots has risen to levels not seen in decades. In Germany, far-left violence has jumped by more than 40% in just the last year alone. In Greece, more than 80% of radical violence is now driven by far-left and anarchist actors. These are not abstract statistics. Americans have seen what those numbers mean. An all-out assault on our immigration officers, sniper attacks, explosives, armed ambushes, a transgender shooter opening fire on Catholic elementary school students as they pray, his gun marked with slogans like, "Where is your God now?" A healthcare executive executed in cold blood in the streets, multiple assassination attempts on a sitting president, and the murder of the greatest conservative activist of a generation, a man who happened to also be a husband and the father of 2 young children, shot and killed while speaking to a crowd of students. This is a distinctive and unique evil. It has always been driven by a hatred, above all else, a hatred for civilization itself. It is a revolt of the worst against the best, a revolt of the weak and the cowardly against the strong and the good. It is perpetrated by those who cannot build, who cannot create, who cannot achieve great things, and take their revenge upon the world for their own inadequacy by seeking to destroy those who can. This is what radical leftism is. It may wear various different slogans and ideologies across place and time. They can call themselves anti-capitalists or anti-imperialists or communists or anarchists or Marxist, but the fundamental character is always the same. It's always the same. It is a poisonous resentment cloaked in the language of equality and justice, and liberation, an overwhelming need to tear down what greater men have built, to wreck what is beautiful and what is right on behalf of people who are only filled with ugliness and have nothing else to offer the world. Through violence and through terror, they once again seek to impose their ugliness on all of us. The old dogma was wrong. The old dogma was wrong. None of this is driven by idealism. It is not utopian. In fact, it is the opposite. One of the criticisms you sometimes hear of communism, for example, is that it sounds good in theory, but it never works in practice. That's actually not true. Communism does not sound good in theory. The world it envisions for all of us is small, flat, gray, leveled of all exception, drained of all that is good and noble in the human soul. The world it envisions is a world without courage, a world without creativity or ambition, a world without heroes or glory or great causes to strive towards, a world without miracles, without myths, without men who rise above the rest to do incredible and extraordinary things.
I'll leave it at that. If you guys want to check it out, you guys see it in the background, the resurgence of political terrorism. Look up Marco Rubio's address. It was a phenomenal speech all the way through. The craziest thing about this, I got an anecdotal experience with this myself. I remember in 2017, me and my wife were fanatical as far as the MAGA crowd goes. You know, the Make America Great Again flags on our house, the red hats in our windshields when we're riding around. I started seeing the turn and the shift of how people were acting, and I had to tell my wife, man, take that stuff out of your windshield. You know, I get it. You know, it's all good. You know, she has a license to carry, so she can protect herself. Oh man, what just happened? Okay, yeah, got a license to carry, so she can protect herself. Can you guys see me? It looks like I just went black.
Yeah, you're frozen. Keep talking though.
Okay, but yeah, so I told her to take it out of the windshield. You know, you don't know how radical these people are getting, and they are becoming. You know, day by day, and it's really sad that just to be afraid to say that I want to make my country great again, to be afraid to say that I appreciate this country and I love this nation, and that's what the whole intimidation factor is with this mob rule. And I'm so glad that Marco Rubio and others are actually starting to talk about it, because it is radical. You know, what say you, Top? What you got on the top?
Hey, I agree. It's an interesting thing to look back at the history of different things and go, that didn't work or that's bad. But I don't necessarily think that sharing causes people's light to burn out, that sharing causes people not to be inspired. We can call it socialism, we can call it communism, we can call it all kinds of different things, but let's just not lose sight of our call to be lovers of other human beings. I would much rather be a human than an American. And that's the only thing that I don't necessarily say that sharing's bad, any of that stuff. But I agree that there's an ideology in our society right now that is not helpful. That these people that are firebombing our federal buildings, these people are not well. They have been pruned from their family. Their family is not taking care of them. They're the people that get radicalized and end up with blue hair and blowing up stuff. They have been abandoned by the society. They only have real relationships with people that aren't really real to them. They're some kind of online something, some kind of the connection of the Sunday school class and the church and the local social organizations is where we got to get back to, and that causes more sharing, not less sharing. So I don't know. I'm just rambling, right?
Well, that's what we're here to do. I think your take on the sharing part is exactly what the problem is, though. All right, and this is what I mean by this. I think that it's wonderful for a community to lean on each other. I think it's wonderful for individuals with big hearts like yours to look out for the downtrodden and poor. You know, I've done it a few times. You know, just pull up on somebody that's looking for a couple bucks and you drop them off a meal. I think that sharing is not the problem, but what ends up happening is individuals who hear the buzzwords that the Marxists and the communists use, they end up getting on board because all they're thinking is we're just sharing and people should want to share. And it's a very subversive way of manipulating the populace into thinking that this is harmless, that the ideology is harmless. And therefore, this is why we have individuals that have now taken office in various states that are, one, claiming that we deserve 9/11, two, claiming that their number one agenda is to abolish ICE and abolish prisons. All right. And all of it is wrapped up in masquerading under the camouflage of everybody should be equal and everybody should be sharing. And that's the problem. That's the major problem in it all. What say you, Nate?
I say I posted a good post on Facebook yesterday or the day before, man. You can vote yourself into communism, but you cannot vote yourself out of communism, man.
Facts.
And they're going to come get you, man. And I'm telling you, we're heading down a dark path, people. a very dark path. And as far as like you were saying, you know, your wife, you know, like take that shit out of the windows and all this stuff, man. I've been threatened, man. I've had people threaten me that they're going to burn my American flag, man, right on my front yard. I'm just like, you know, and I think we talked about this before, and I was like, don't burn anything on my property. I strongly advise you not to do that, man.
Right.
Well, all you're going to do is just call the cops. You're right. I am going to call the cops after the aftermath, of what's going to happen to you. Okay. So, we're heading down a dark path, man. And I don't know if I think we could come back, and I know we're going to come back. And it's not going to happen here, man. But boy, it's coming, and it's come like we talked about 2 weeks ago. It's coming, and it's coming fast, brother. Woo!
Right.
It's coming fast, man.
So MBO Original says, top. If churches wasn't so corrupt today, we would have what you are speaking of. The church and community-based nonprofits were supposed to be shares. Dude, I agree 1,000%, man. Then you hit it. Boom. You got it. Yep. I talked the last time we talked about how the government took that away from the communities. When welfare started back in the 60s and 70s, churches stopped taking care of their citizens that were around them, and the government took over. And that was a big deal. It changed our country.
Yeah, sure did.
Yeah, it really did. Ray is dropped out somehow. He's got some kind of thing maybe. But I'll tell you, I really think that, you know, I think we're all saying the same kinds of things. But I would defer to you guys, to your experiential things like communism is bad, we got to stop it, whatever. Because I'm going to sit here and I promise you, no matter what happens in my life, I'm going to look for the roses and I'm going to look for the sunshine. And I'm not going to paint a bad picture because that's not the life I'm looking for. I'm living to look for the fun, to look for the good. I don't even want to worry about the bad. And so I'll leave that to you guys, you know.
I can appreciate that, you know. I can truly appreciate that, Top. Like me and my wife, we talk about a lot of half the reason why we're moving out so far away from everything and everybody is because that is our heaven. You know, we're already drawing up diagrams of a pond that we're going to dig, and I'm about to put an 1.5 acre pond on my land, you know, and throw a bunch of fish in there, and you know, that's heaven to me. You know what I mean? But looking out through history and the things that I know of the human nature, right? Like I can't avoid what I've been through. I can't avoid what I've seen out of people. I can't avoid what I've seen throughout history. And I'm such a big buff of economics now. So this is one thing I noticed about the difference between my buddies who were careers in the military and the ones that weren't, right? My buddies who did 20 plus, they have no understanding of the private sector, all right? Especially the ones that got out and then they did nothing else and they just like lived off of retirement. They have no understanding of private sector economics. It's just like, it's like manna from heaven to them. Money just rains, you know, and you know, a lot of them are, ironically, no matter what their situation is, they find their way to still be, you know, check to check and things like that. And it's just fundamental economics miss us. And I understand why. I've been on both sides. You know, in the military, you wake up, you have your day is already defined for you in a very, you know, nebulous way. Like, you know what your day is. You have people in a hierarchical structure that gives you commands. You don't really have to put a lot of thought process into what your day is going to be and how do you make your money, right? And every month, every 2 times a month, you get a standard check depending upon your rank, and it doesn't deviate depending on how many hours you did or didn't do. Your taxes, you really don't even think about them depending on what state you're coming from. It may affect your check or not, you know. So economics has never been the guys that I see that did the long run strong suit. So it's easy to be detached from that, not realizing that that is the way of the world. And we in the DOD got our checks because of the private sector, right? So it's easy to not realize where the milk is actually coming from. We're just going to the grocery store and drinking it, you know? And one thing about communism and socialism is a direct assault to the foundation of how our economics work. You can never have socialism without first having a prosperous capitalist nation. Every socialist or communist country rides on the back of the private sector ever being in existence. So, right, the reality is that socialism is usually the end times of it's signifying the height of that country's success. And it signifies that the people have gotten so fat that they don't know where they're detached from where their food comes from. Now they can think of, luxury beliefs of, well, these cows need humane treatment. It all ties from an entitlement and a privilege. And one thing about getting into the private sector that hit me very hard the minute I got into it was I didn't have experience in translating what skills I had from the military to the private sector to in turn turn that into a paycheck at first, right? And as I dove deeper into how all of that worked, how do I get this job? What do I need on my resume? What do I need to do when I show up? Yeah, I came with that ferocity that you have in the military where, you hit the ground running. You have an installation to do. You have some test runs. Whatever your job is in the military, everybody knows what go mode is. And you hit that ground and you go mode. And I brought that to every hour of my day. But what I did realize was the downtime is not the same. The days off are not the same. Every day and every second you're on the clock matters to your check. And in the private sector, you feel that a lot more when it's like, oh, I can make more if I do this, but now I got to do your work too. And you get, no. So there's a lot of that starts to highlight to people in the private sector. And then when you take it to another level and you start, okay, now I'm going to take some risk. I done worked 80 hours this week because my employer allows me to do as much overtime as I want. So I'm trying to run my checkup as much as possible. But then at the end of the week, you realize that, damn, I only made $150 extra. Why? Oh, because overtime taxes is taxed a little harder. So what the fuck am I doing? So then you take it another step and say, well, I want to work for myself. I'm going to put up equity on my house. I'm going to save up for 3 years straight. I'm going to eat ramen noodles, beans, and rice and make sure I'm debt free. So now I can take this finance that I just stored up. Me and my wife, we're going to we're going to go out on a limb and risk it all so that we can create, longevity and financial independence for not just us, but even our children, right? And then you have these spoiled, entitled people that are being put in power in positions like the ALCs, like the female we just covered last week, the Seattle mayor, the Chicago mayor, never had a real job. They're coming in and now they're dictating to you how much you need to be paying your fair share after you've risked it all. And capitalism is about rewarding the merit, not rewarding those who don't want to put any effort in. So there is something to be said that not everybody is not putting all their effort in. And some people are created in a way where they have God-given gifts and talents that are not that are stronger in one suit than others. And some people aren't, like, everybody's not going to be LeBron James. You're not going to be jumping out the gym and you have this natural gift. So now you're a billionaire because you can play sports well. And then you got other people on the other ends that have mental disabilities and issues and health problems. I think us as a society should be looking out for the less fortunate. We should have a social floor, a safety net, a floor, right? But that floor can't constantly keep rising to assume that because we now have this technology called cell phones, now everybody needs to pay for people's cell phones. You get what I'm saying? That's now assuming that people are entitled to extra labor that doesn't exist. Last episode, we touched a little bit on Luigi Mangione, and you said that some people look at that guy as a hero. right? And I believe that is 100% true. I had a video I was putting together on Loose and Reckless, never put it out. I got a whole video on that topic, and it's actually sad to me that people could even fix their mind to think this way. It's the same way they're looking at Lindsey Graham's passing, celebrating and dancing on his death, just because they disagreed with him, because he's on the other side of these things than him, because he's a capitalist, because, yeah, he has some hawkish positions, but sometimes people don't understand that my method of protecting my family and my loved ones might not be the same as yours. You know, somebody come to your house, Nate, and they want to burn your flag. You say don't do it because you're probably going to end up in a body bag before I call the police. Whereas Top, you might want to go out there and have dialogue and try to reason with these people. These are two different methods. At the same time, there's two different outcomes possible, but who's wrong? Are you wrong or is Nate wrong? I don't think either one of you are wrong, but neither one of you should be hated for your method. And that's the biggest problem that I'm seeing with the socialist just share crowd. They're looking at people like the executive from the healthcare organization because he was making profits. This is the evil, dirty word. He was making profits on healthcare. The reality is everybody's doing some kind of business for a profit, and then in turn, that is what is taxed and funds the society. This CEO that got murdered, he had a family, he had friends, he had loved ones, he had all everything everybody else has. Healthcare is not a human right, no matter what the slogan says. You're not entitled to healthcare. 100 years ago, there was no such thing as entitled healthcare. 2,000 years ago, if you couldn't afford to go see the witch doctor and they had all the wrong prescriptions, it just was what it was. That is not human nature's natural position is poverty. That is our natural state. We start off as an impoverished species. We work our way out of poverty. And capitalism has been the biggest vehicle for that all over the world. Nate, what you say about that? What you got?
I'm with you on that. So the working your way out of poverty, man, is a big thing. And going back to what you were saying earlier here a few minutes ago, I tell you what, myself, started working, man, as soon as I could walk, man, pushing lawnmowers, mowing grass, $5, man, shoveling snow in the driveways when I was a little kid and stuff, and then worked my way into Little Caesar's Pizza, man, and I was flipping pizzas and stuff when I was in high school, man, and all that stuff all the way up till I graduated high school. But now going back to what you were saying, I was not born, but my adult life, my young adult life, I was raised on a salary in the Army. And I did that for 20 years. You know, I was a lifer and I did that for 20 years, man. And then I got out, got my education, and then went into being a high school teacher for 10 years. Mm-hmm. And so I learned that way, but it's the same concept. You're still on a salary.
Right.
Okay. There's no difference between, well, let me work a little overtime. Let me do this a little overtime and all this and that. So to be honest with you, I really don't understand the experience of the overtime and all this and that. My wife does, however. She works for a Fortune 500 company. She's a manager out there, and she's on a salary too. But she started off as a union worker out there with that. But I guess the point going back to, like I said, man, once you give them a little bit of leeway, the communists. Once you give, I'm done saying socialist, gentlemen, ladies and gentlemen. I'm done saying that. We're just going to come out and say communist, man. Once you give them a little leeway, man, they're going to take it all. Yeah, and I'm going to tell you right now, man, they're going to take it, and it ain't going to be fun. Now, Marco Rubio, I tell you what, man, take some of these young socialists that call themselves socialists. Take these young kids and put them in Miami, Florida for a weekend, okay? Send them to like a Cuban cafe area for just 1 hour, man, and see how they survive, dude, because it ain't going to happen. You know, these motherfuckers, they ain't going to have that shit down there, man, because they're going to like, motherfucker, I'm here because of what the hell you're talking about, and I've seen it before in my life, and it's very sick and dangerous, man. So that's where I stand on it, bro.
It's funny. Everybody that I ever meet that comes from that they escape from that, they say the same thing, that Americans are naive and don't know what they're asking for.
Sounds
Every
great, man.
is nonstop. I just, and I don't understand how we don't see it. You know, as a group, as a whole, like this just doesn't work. You know, Top, you say
my brother. Just real quick, I don't mean to interrupt, man. I'll tell you
Go
why
ahead.
we don't see it, brother. We don't see it because they're not teaching it in school, man. Like I said the last time we were all together, man, we were taught, our youth, what the consequence was of that environment, man. We grew up in the era where you had to worry about the Soviet Union and all this and that. The difference between capitalism and communism. But they're not getting taught that in school these days, man. I can't express it enough. That's one of the reasons I left the public school district, man. That's one of the reasons.
Right.
That's a fact. Go ahead, man.
Top,
I'm sorry.
Top, no, you good. Top, you say sharing, right? Is a core principle that I think everybody should have. I believe that too. I think everybody should have a gracious and benevolent heart. To want to help their fellow mankind out, right? One thing that Marco Rubio touched on was the fact that this movement that we see arising is not about sharing, but it's about the envy. It's about the envy of others, right? And as you know, that's a huge cardinal sin, right? What can you say about that, Top? What do you think about that aspect of it?
So the biggest thing is that nobody gives a shit about the American. Nobody, right? And the government doesn't give a shit. Your mama doesn't give a shit. Your uncle doesn't give a shit. Nobody gives a shit. It's like you pull up your bootstraps and show up and make your money and do what you got to do and be happy that you're free and you're American. And what happens is if you're downtrodden in just a little bit, or if your father's not around and you don't have a good example, or if there's nobody to lift you just a one step, like what would have happened to you, Ray, if I hadn't have fought for you when Parker said, "Hey, Ray's a freaking no good yo-yo, don't take him anywhere." What would happen if I would have pruned your ass and left you off? Well, we don't know. Okay, we don't.
Right.
But I will tell you, I fought for you, okay? Right. One of the things that our country does is it gives no shits about our citizens. It doesn't care. Now, it cares if you're over in someplace you're not supposed to be or you're a soldier. They'll go get you, okay? But the average American that gets born whose father abandons them and they have nobody to look to, they get pruned off and they end up in our streets in a gang running around in Montgomery shooting people, doing crazy shit. The thing, if you go to YouTube and you look at videos from people from China, right? They're happy. They're posting videos about how cheap they're getting all this good food. They're talking about the jobs that they have. They got technology, everything. They consider themselves capitalist, but they consider themselves capitalists for their country, for their nation, for their one China. They take care of the medical benefits. They work their workers hard. And maybe it's too far, but I promise you 90% of the stuff you're getting off the news about how China's awful is bullshit ass propaganda, because otherwise they would have overthrown it. I promise you that the Chinese people are probably better off than what we are in the average. If you go look, they got they got better technology.
No,
Go look. I dare you.
I've been looking. I've been watching. I've been looking. I think they have done wonderful with their rail, all their tech. I mean, it is a big spectacle. But what we failed to incorporate in this conversation is 1978. When they transitioned into a capitalist economy. So they stopped centralizing their economy and they started implementing capitalist Western principles into their economics.
That's what I'm talking about.
So what I'm saying is you cannot have a prosperous people without capitalism.
Right.
Now the idea of communist China still having a boot on its people's shoulders about the way they live and ever since the Tiananmen Square incident, the reality of this is that over there, just like it started to be around 2019, 2018, here in America, when you would say certain things online, I had two channels. I had a channel called Toxic Masculinity, all right? And this got cut, right? Why did it get cut? Because the political party in power had already influenced, and these CEOs from YouTube and Facebook came out and said it, that they were being told by the government to censor everyone who said things they didn't like. Yeah. So essentially what you're saying is this communist nation that has 4,000 years of communist heritage that ended up taking on economic principles from the West, capitalism, is now the shining light in the city because their people are actually reaping the benefits of being a part of the World Trade Organization now.
Right.
They still don't have the freedom to do this, what we're doing right now. They can't freely discuss or talk bad about China. They can't talk bad about China.
Well, the funny thing about it, Ray, is that our government has abandoned us. Our government has deployed us to places. We have bombed people that we didn't need to bomb. And the whole of it, if we were really the greatest country in the world, I would think that my grandma and my mom could get reasonable health care without being friggin' gouged. That my mother-in-law could go to the dentist and have a reasonable bill. And it's just not, the government gives no shits about us. And they say, go do it on your own. And that's fundamentally fucked up. I would much rather be a human than an American.
Let me ask you something. Over there in Scandinavian countries, over there in Europe where they have free healthcare, why do they come over here to get major operations?
Right. Well, that's called capitalism. They have the money to do it.
No. The question I'm asking in particular, where they have these free healthcare, these systems, whether it's the UK, Scandinavia, any major surgeries, any major dinner operations, they have to fly to America. Well, and it's not because of capitalism.
No, it is. It is because of capitalism. Look, you only do basic stuff, right? You don't offer sex change operations and boob jobs and stuff. And so people travel for those things. People go to Mexico all the time and get their teeth done and all kinds of stuff. And that's fine and dandy. But by golly, if we're in the greatest country in America, we can at least have a doctor down the street that I could call who will answer my call to help me for a reasonable amount of price. It is our government feeds us a bunch of bullshit and our media acts like we're all this, but they don't take care of us. They print money anytime they want to for anything they want, except to help us get a damn house.
To help us get a house?
Yeah, to do the things that for like young American families to buy a house, right? It takes a huge deal because all the damn private corporations are buying up the houses and it's. I promise you again.
So how do you feel about the bill that just passed that Trump pushed to get corporations out of housing?
Amen. That's what I'm talking about. Over time, through history, our government has cared nothing about us. Thankfully, Trump is here and starting to reverse some of that stuff. I agree, dude. I'm all for it.
I see you shaking your head, Nate. What you got to say?
I'm just saying this, man. There is nothing in the Constitution that guarantees any type of health care for anybody, man. Constitutionally, man. It's not. Right. That goes back to the working class where you were afforded the opportunity to have a health insurance with your paycheck, man. You had to work for it, man. You had to work for it. Will, you and I retired from the Army, bro. I know you don't agree with me, man. But you and I retired from the Army, man. We have that, but that was one of the inspirations for me to serve my country.
Oh yeah.
For all those years, man.
I agree.
So that I could have health care for myself and my family until my kids graduated from college and stuff. Did we just lose Ray? There he is.
Yeah. Okay. Right, but
go ahead, bro.
And I agree, and you accurately do that. But the average American that happens to be an American doesn't have any of those benefits. He doesn't have because I'm American. You know what? The only benefit I get when I'm 21, I can go buy an assault rifle.
Yeah,
that's the benefit you get.
I'm sorry, but they have to go get a job. They have to contribute to society, man.
Yes.
That's the point.
Yes.
Get
That's
a
the
job.
number one thing.
Contribute to society. You too could have health insurance and all that stuff.
Right.
Now, if you're talking about elderly people, man, that's a different story. But we have plans that are put in there for that. Okay, but I'm just talking about your average 30-year-old, man. Your average 30-year-old.
I agree, Nate. I agree.
Go ahead, man.
So just to interject a little bit, I just wanted to throw a little thing in there. I hear this so often, regularly, and I did some research on per capita income, America versus most European nations, and most of the places that have these one-payer healthcare systems, and the cost of healthcare in our nation versus other relative nations. There's something to be said about the fact that we earn on average 8 times what anybody else earns per capita individually. Our poorest are the fattest in the world. Are the fattest. Our healthcare is overburdened mostly because of our choices. Because just like the label on your cup, Buc-ee's, we have a plethora of things. I sat there, was watching videos of all these Europeans coming back from the World Cup. You know why they miss America right now? It's because of our variety and our freedom, because they've been lied to all their life about their political correctness. They've been lied to. Their healthcare sucks. They have to wait years for any kind of operations if they want to wait on this so-called magical system, right? But the reality of it is nothing in this life is free. It's all about self-responsibility. And I get where you're coming from, because, you know, my grandmother, she died about 7 years ago. But she ended up having a surgery like a year or two before she died, and she didn't pay for it. You know, she had Medicaid. Like the reality is our healthcare system is doing more than what we give it credit for. Yeah, there might be some expenses to it, but the cost of living in America is more expensive than anywhere else. Also, this is why a lot of expats want to go to other countries and take their veteran check and go and live the high life in Thailand, right? Because the cost of living here is high. Granted, because everybody's competing here. This is the battleground of competition. You want to live a simple life and let your money go far, stack it up and go somewhere else where it goes more longer, or move to a different city where it goes longer. That's the freedom we have to do with what we have. I think America gets a bad rap by the idea that there's so many people that have so much, and then there's so many people that don't have, right? Like, that's a byproduct of life. That's natural. That's always going to be. There's always going to be one hyena or one cheetah that is more successful at hunting than the others, and that's just a product. That's a byproduct of things. And I do sympathize with our seniors and not being able to have all the health care they need. I think what I have seen happen a lot was these copay union things that doctors are starting to do right now, where they're actually grouping up and they're letting people pay them directly instead of going through any kind of healthcare insurance system. I think that's something to be looked for. I think people should look for more of that. You know?
I want to talk about that. Can I talk about that real quick?
Yes, sir.
So my wife is under TRICARE. Okay. And she requires some migraine medicine. She's had to take it for years. My wife has multiple sclerosis and has lived with it now for like a decade. Okay. TRICARE will approve her medicine 1 month, and the next month they will disapprove it and not tell her about it.
That's horrible.
It blows my mind. I wake up and my wife goes, "Oh my gosh, I'm not getting my migraine medicine tomorrow. I'm down to 3 pills, and they've just denied it. I have to call them back." And
how long has she had TRICARE?
Since we've been married, a couple years. Okay, and it just absolutely blows my mind. It literally makes me so livid. But it goes to show our whole system. Why? Look, if I require a life-saving medication, why can't I get more than a 30-day dose of it? Well, I mean, if it's required for my life to have a normal thing, can I get a 90-day dose? Can I get a 120-day dose? Can I get a year dose? Well, what kind of country? You say we're in a free country, but I can't get. I mean, we're not talking about heroin here. We're not talking about cocaine. We're talking about a little bitty thing that she puts on her tongue and that causes her not to be in massive amounts of pain. Right?
Has she shopped around other places?
So that's the point. So this is the point. These direct lines, okay, skipping the insurance company, actually finally allows citizens to begin to manage their own health care, right? Because we all know the insurance companies are fucking us, right? We all know it. We all know our government is fucking us. We all know it. The issue is that we don't know what to do about it because we don't have any power, right? So some people go, we got to be socialists, and some people go, we got to be capitalists, we got to be whatever. But the real deal is that at the end of it, it's really only us. It's the government is, they're going to go on past us.
See the thing. So my perspective is the government really should have only one duty, and that's to protect these borders. And uphold the Constitution.
That's their job. It's not
the whole purpose of the government is to protect the borders, uphold the Constitution, and allow for each citizen to be able to live his fullest life under the rules that played in the Constitution. Everything else that we're asking for in this modern time is new. Yeah. This is all new, and I don't think that that's a bad demand or ask. I think the number one thing, to your point, Top. And it's kind of segues perfectly into the next little thing that I wanted to talk about, was us being on our own and us wanting our government to do more and care for us more. I think we have to find a way to unify as a people and stop. Like, I look at it like this: resources all across the world. If you look at what just happened in South Africa, the way these people are kicking other African nationalists out of their country, going door to door, ripping people out of their house. If they're from Zambia and they're in South Africa, they got to get out. They're from Ghana, they got to get out. They got to go, and they're caravanning them out. The number one reason is what you hear the people on the right here in America say: there's not enough resources for people everywhere to come and just take part of it. It's just not. So my thing is the Voter Act. Save America Act. Make sure our elections are secure. Make sure our borders are secure where we don't have millions of people we can't even account for here. Then maybe this conversation even has some validity to it because we have a locked system that is self-sustainable. You know what I'm saying? Without that locked system that's self-sustainable, we're doing nothing but condemning ourselves to be fucked over if it's just like, oh, you get an EBT card. You get an EBT card. We can't do that. We can't do it. So, I
don't want to be dependent on my government, man. I don't. Right. And neither did Jefferson or any of the founding fathers, man. I don't want to be dependent on my government.
Right.
Okay?
Right.
I served the United States, the people of the United States, when I served in the military for 20 years, and I did some hard jobs, and I was in some very hard units, man. And, and we all were, man. And I don't want to be dependent on them for me to control my life, dude. Like, you want to build a pool in your backyard? Do you have to go to the federal government to get a permission slip, or what do they call that, man?
Permit.
Yes, you do. Yes,
permit.
you do.
You do locally. Yes, locally, to make sure they can dig it and all that stuff. But then you have rules to follow. Like, you have to have a 4-foot fence around it if you're in like village or town limits and all that stuff. I understand all that. But what I'm saying is, there's countries out there, they can't have that unless the higher levels even tell them they can have an in-ground pool or a pool even built in their backyard, man.
To your point, that's the thing with government, why I don't like government, big government, because they create things for themselves to exist. It's self-fulfilling prophecies. Like, they self-fulfill their problems they create, right? So the bigger the government gets and the more we depend on them, the more they have power over us. So the idea of wanting them to be the solution to all is also saying that they have the right to take all. Whatever they can give us, they can take. Whatever they approve, they can deny. So the more we're like our forefathers and less reliant on them for anything, the better we are. You know, that's just my take. Hot take. I know it might not be for everybody, but let's flush through this last segment before we get off. What's up, Top?
No, dude, let me tell you something. I just want to stop right here.
Yeah.
I love you guys. I love you guys.
Top.
I love being able to talk like this. Yeah, let's do it, man.
It's beautiful. It's a beautiful thing.
It's fun.
People don't have these conversations in public anymore, and I don't know why. Amongst friends, you know, they don't want to talk about religion. They don't want to talk about politics. In all reality, this is why our country was so great. It was so great because there was a such thing as the town square where people would come out there and spend all day talking about this stuff. So they could figure it out. They wanted to hash it out. Right.
Yeah.
Right.
That don't happen no more, man.
Right. So back along the topic of what we were talking about as far as locking our system, right? This is one of the biggest, deadliest things that we were on the right talk. They've been calling us conspiracy theories. There's nobody cheating our elections. There's nobody that isn't supposed to be voting. Well, let's see what's going on.
To vote. He's been in office for a full year now. They have not come up with any of this purported evidence of voter fraud. You guys are in search of something that there's been no evidence exists. New Jersey is double checking its voter rolls tonight after a software error added 6,600 non-citizens to the voter rolls. The suggestion that this is fraud suggests that these people were trying to vote. Sometimes what happens is that when state systems are incorrect, people receive information and they are confused. Where some people who are ineligible to vote are not aware that they're ineligible to vote. I do think it's, whether it is widespread or not, matters. I do think that the numbers actually matter.
The Republicans here are talking about a solution to a non-existent problem. Again, Jake, to make it very clear, this country does not have a problem of election security in any measurable level, and certainly not based on people coming from other countries.
Right, it happens, but at very, very minuscule numbers. It's not a serious threat when it comes to election security. Again, it happens, but very seldom.
Vanishingly small. I mean, it is so small that it's just beyond compare.
But over the bomb.
Fast forward. Here we go. She's
That's why I don't hardly listen to news anymore. It's all the freaking junk, man. It's just junk.
And the problem is, I think the media is one of the number one enemies to the American people right now.
For sure.
You know, and the biggest problem is that they've caved for one party. And this party that they caved for and keep trying to cover for is leading on the people and misguiding the people. And they're also doing a bunch of nefarious things. Like, I don't know if you guys seen the videos of LA, what's going on in LA, how they actually send people out to go collect signatures from homeless people, pay them $2 for their signature to vote for somebody. Yep. All of this stuff, this is horrible. There's no integrity on that side. And you bring it up and they're like, you're not talking about anything. But then Trump last week comes out and says that if you have any illegals voting on your rolls and you get caught, you as the elected official will go to prison. We're going after you. And now, magically, New Jersey comes out and she has a bombshell admission. The governor over here. Let me see if I can play this real quick.
And now that she's been proven wrong, again, she is
led to the improper voter registration.
Is coming from what is supposed to be a journalist, right? A moderator on a debate show. It's very shameful. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get into this.
2023, nearly 3 years before I became governor, a serious software error in New Jersey's motor vehicle system led to the improper voter registration of what we believe to be roughly 6,600 people in our state. In the case of this error.
So let me get this straight. 6,600 people. 6,600 people on a software error. Now, correct me if I'm wrong. If you needed to be able to prove that you're a citizen, right, to vote with the SAVE Act that everybody 80% of the country wants, wouldn't we negate this motor vehicle mishap? I don't see how this makes any sense to people, and people keep running with it like it's like it's nothing to it. So your take on that top? We got one more topic to cover real quick after that. This is the data centers. But what's your take on that?
Look, the Democrats are doing everything they can to cheat. It's the bottom line. Right. The bottom line. That's what I got to say.
What you got, Nate?
Hey, I'm with you. Top, you and I are eye to eye on that one, brother, man. I'm with you on that. I mean, there's nothing else to say, man. I mean, it's what it is, man.
Right.
Hey, brother, if I went to, I'm 54 years old, man. If I still go to certain restaurants and bar and grills and all that shit, man,
right,
by law, they have to ask me to pull out an ID, man, just to doggone buy a beer at the bar, man.
Yeah.
Can you imagine if I wasn't able to show my ID,
right,
a voting place, man.
Right, right.
No, that's the reality of it, man. It's just cheating. That's all it is, man.
I think it's so unfortunate to me. I think that's what really bothers me the most, right? And it's kind of exhausting because, like we constantly talk about our little piece of heaven, right? I grew up in an inner city in Tampa. I have a lot of family and individuals that I love that still exist in that space, and my heart breaks for them because they're brainwashed and they go back, and all these Democrats have to do is say racism and they vote for them. It doesn't matter the facts I present. It doesn't matter what I'm giving them. And and then globally like this, there's no voter fraud. You can't tell these people anything. I just don't know how they're still winning elections. And yes, there's the cheating aspect of it. But just like I said to my wife when Trump lost in 2020, she was like, they had to cheat. I said, maybe so. But who cares? It should be too big to rig. It should be so big. This shit shouldn't even be a competition. And luckily enough, 2024, it wasn't a competition, right? But I'm afraid that the trend that's happening, that the competition is back and is actually going in the opposite direction, where these socialists, these communists have the sway. They have the hearts and mind of the youth. The Gen Z, they outpace the baby boomers. There's more Gen Zs than millennials. All right, the Gen Xers, y'all generation, there's more of them than y'all. All right, and the problem is their vote is in another 10 years is going to be louder than ours and my generation, millennials, and the Gen Xers combined. Now, what happens when the nation goes that direction and we can't talk to them? We can't tell them. We can't. Most of them have a lot of the feeling that you have, Top, of it's just sharing. Some people are less fortunate, and the vast majority of them feel like capitalists and profits are evil, right? So my biggest issue and why I keep doing this is because I feel like maybe if we could just touch one, we could reach two. If we could touch two, we could reach three, and those can run off and be little minions to the side of good too. I'm afraid that it's a downhill spiral that we have to hit rock bottom before people understand what the problem is. But I don't know. What you got, Nate?
Hey, man, for our viewers out there that are watching this right now, for anybody that's like questioning what we're talking about with the youth and all that stuff, and I'm not like comparing stuff to movies, but this is not a fictional movie, man. The Killing Fields. Please watch the movie The Killing Fields. It's an old movie from the 80s, but if you watch The Killing Fields, man, you'll see how communism captured the youth of the communities, man, and turned them against people like our age.
Yeah.
And I mean, it was very crazy, man. So the communists, they always go after the youth, man. So when you talk about Generation Z, where we're at right now, man, that's exactly what they've been doing for decades. and people have been writing about this, man. It's Karl Marx. It's in the Marx book, man. You have to take over the youth, get the youth to turn on the adults and the people of the adult world, man. The people that are prosperous, that have money, that people take them over, control their heads, and if they don't, then they have to pay the consequence. And that's exactly, man. If you got to watch the movie The Killing Fields, man.
I would check it out.
Exactly where it's at, dude, man. The Killing Fields.
Hey, Nate.
Go ahead, bro.
Hold up your book again. MBO wants to see it. One Term by Nate Aganaga. Right there. There's that. Yeah, you go out there, go find it on Amazon. Go check it out. I own it.
Phenomenal book. Phenomenal book.
I wrote that. I'm sorry. I wrote that book after the first term of Donald Trump, and I wrote about why the left and what we're talking about right now. Why the left and what their inspiration was just to take this man down. And the effects and the timeline of it and all that stuff, man. Yeah. And then who was his friends prior to and who were his friends after. So yeah.
So everything's good. After all of that being said, I saved this last part to wrap it all up and put it up nice bow on top. Because I think this story right here about to cover is probably one of the most underrated but most important stories of our time. In so many ways, it ties in the communist aspect. It ties in what we say about state power and all this other good stuff and the sharing and then the big businesses having no care and evil, all of this stuff. If you could share my screen, we're covering Georgia homeowners being forced out of their homes. Everybody knows the eminent domain policy, right? All right. So if anybody doesn't know, in the viewership, what eminent domain is basically when the government has a project and maybe it might be a highway, maybe it might be some utility lines, but they say we need to confiscate or put an easement into your property or confiscate your property and we will compensate you for it. There's no yes, no about it, right? This project here of Georgia data centers is very intriguing in that matter, but I want you guys to, after we watch this, I'm going to pull up the comments in this. And I want you guys to see the common theme of what people are saying.
All right, imagine waking up one day and being told the home your family has lived in for years is going to be demolished to help power the AI boom, and there's absolutely nothing you can do about it. That is what is happening to some homeowners in Georgia. They've been given an ultimatum: sell your home or the state will take it. Utility giant Georgia Power is planning to build a new transmission line so it can handle new data centers. Skylar Henry has more from a county just outside Atlanta.
I'm a single mom. I worked hard for everything.
How do you put a price on a home you never intended to sell? One filled with more than 2 decades of memories.
I think I was 5 or 6 when this was built.
The treehouse where you grew up playing pretend. The yard where you buried your pets. The greenhouse that fed your family.
When you talk about what being on this property means to you,
yeah.
Right? It's y'all's.
It's ours. It's ours. It's my mom's. It's mine. It's my daughter's. It's our family. We belong here.
But Ansley Brown's childhood home likely won't be here much longer. That's because the state's largest utility, Georgia Power, says it needs the area to make way for a 35-mile-long transmission line.
Georgia Power has been here for as long as Ansley's mother has owned this property. It's just beyond the tree line. Now, with the expansion of this latest project, they're looking to take the 2.5 acres the house sits on.
Georgia Power says increasing demand from homes, businesses, and data centers has outpaced the capacity of its existing grid. And building a new transmission line requires acquiring more than 300 parcels of land, including residential properties.
What did your mom tell you she wanted for this property to be?
Generational wealth. So I have a young daughter. This home is supposed to go to her. True generational wealth was the idea. And now it's being stripped from us.
Georgia Power estimates 70 to 80% of the power on this new line is expected to help serve data centers, being built in part to support the growing demands of artificial intelligence. It says the remaining 20 to 30% of power will serve the state's growing residential and commercial demand.
All power generation starts somewhere.
Holly Lovett is a Georgia Power spokesperson.
We take into factor our customers, first and foremost. They are at the center of our business and the core of what we do. We want them to be able to have their daily lives. And we take that seriously. It is something needed for survival. And we empathize with these community members who are seeing this growth.
Georgia Power told us that they feel as if they've done this process responsibly. What would you say to that?
I disagree. You can't tear down 35 miles of rural Georgia and it not hurt something or somebody. And to say that you're doing it in the name of data centers is a slap in the face to us, our community, our animals.
Brown's mother recently came to an agreement with Georgia Power to sell. Brown says if she didn't, the utility could have sought to acquire her property through eminent domain, a legal process that allows private property to be taken with compensation for projects determined to serve a public purpose.
Eminent domain is always, a last resort for us, and it's something we never want to do.
To us, it's theft. It's literally a $1 billion company stealing land from smaller people who can't fight back. We don't have the money to fight Georgia Power.
So that's why a few months ago, Ansley took her story to TikTok.
My childhood home is being taken by Georgia Power.
Her videos went viral, and she began sharing stories of others in similar situations, like Cynthia Van Epps.
What is it taking from her? Look behind me. It's taking this entire backyard, the pool and everything.
We don't want to move. That's the bottom line.
Van Epps and her husband raised 4 kids here.
18 years, a lot of memories here.
Our 2 youngest, who are 16 and 17, this is the house they've known. This is the only house that they've known.
If Van Epps doesn't sell Georgia Power her property, she says the utility can obtain an easement across a chunk of her backyard, which would require removing the pool and would leave the transmission line just feet from her home.
One of their trucks could pull up right outside our bedroom door, 12 feet from our bedroom door, and there's absolutely nothing we could do about it.
What do you say to someone who will push back on any sort of offer that's out there and say, well, a price tag can't replace memories?
Oh gosh, it almost makes me emotional because I have those memories in like my house, and I get how deeply personal people's homes are. I would just say that we see you and we hear you, and we want this process to be respectful and transparent, and that is going to ultimately benefit you. We want that.
Van Epps and Brown don't buy that. And while they both know it's likely too late to save their homes, they don't want to see this happen to anyone else.
My mom wants an apology. She wants an apology from Georgia Power.
That's it?
That's it.
And it's because of how she feels as if she's been treated.
Yeah. I mean, for an entire year, they have bullied her, and there is no sorry. They even told us they don't pay for pain and suffering. So that's what we want. We want an apology from Georgia Power. We want them to say, hey, we're sorry.
When asked if
This
is
junk, man. This is junk.
All right. So the reason why I think this was important, before I dive into it, I just wanted to cover some of these comments. One guy says, data centers are not a public utility. I agree. We have to make the process of stealing your home as smooth as possible, says iHeart. Mel Berry says, private companies should not be able to be using public domain to steal homes. I wanted to highlight that comment.
I agree.
Yep. These people live in such beautiful homes. Properties is horrible. The heads of these big companies have no conscience or soul. I wanted to highlight that comment too. Eminent domain is often the initial threat to get people to sign. Disgusting. Almost makes me emotional, says the monster with no emotions. I think the framing of that CEO, that female CEO, as being a monster with no emotions is kind of harsh. I think that's the same stuff that led to the death of the CEO of United Healthcare. I think that the person who said eminent domain should never be used by private companies is also accurate. What say you, Top? What you got on the subject?
Look, they made a deal, okay? They got paid. And she's making her little videos and doing her little thing, okay? But she made a deal. So if she was standing there going, you're going to have to shoot me to get me off my property, because me and my mom or whatever, I might have a different view, but I promise you, your bank account is taken care of.
Right. What you say, Nate?
Thank you. That same thing, man. Same thing as Will, man. What they're not saying on these videos
is how much they got paid.
No, how many hundreds of thousands of dollars they got paid, man, for this.
Right.
It's the same argument they've been having since we put the interstate highways within the United States, man. You know, when we were little kids, man, or before our time, brother. And it's the same argument, man. People have been arguing about this shit for years, man. But what they don't argue about, because like Will said, they just want to get on TV, man, and show their face. But what they're not complaining about, is probably the $500,000 or $750,000 that they're
over the market price of their property. Yeah, over the market price. Right.
Absolutely.
Right. I had the same thing. I mean, so for me, what triggered me on this whole thing and why I brought it up was number one, the comments. And like the theme of the comments that I saw was everybody talking about how evil the company and the corporation was, not realizing that the company or the corporation couldn't do that without the state power. So I wanted to bring up the power of the state in this and make people understand that the more you beg for state power, the more that they can do to you, and you don't have any fucking say in it. So the biggest thing you want is to avoid giving the state as much power as possible. I thought about myself being in this situation with buying all this land right now, and if that was to come to me, you know, me personally, I'm not that sentimental about things. Like, you know, our first home, me and my wife will tell you, we still had a house, but I told her, don't get comfortable. This is a step home. This is, you know what I'm saying? We gonna be here maybe 5-10 years and we're renting it out. You know what I mean? So I get, you know, I get other people will get attached after raising kids, having a longevity in the home. But me personally, I'd be like, show me the dollars. Make me an indecent proposal. You know? And y'all can have it. You know?
I drove my mom to her childhood home this morning. Right. We put her in the Tesla, the self-driving car, and we put in the address. It's no longer, there's no road that gets there. We had to take this long dirt road.
Wow.
And I got a call about a month ago from a lady that said your mom's house, you know, her home burned down. And wow. We had done a video a couple years ago. I went with my mom and we visited that childhood home and made a video about it. So it burning down, when we went there today, it was really, really neat to go by there and to visit. So I understand about the land and childhood homes and stuff. But that lady right there, the little girl that was on the thing, she was talking about money. She was worried about money and fame on TikTok. That's what she wanted.
Right. I agree. Hey, man, fellas, I love the conversation. I loved it. Even when it gets spicy, I love it. I love you guys. Hey, and we got to keep this thing going, man. It's a duty of ours.
Amen.
That was another NBC Room, man. You guys, hey, if you guys are watching, stick with us week after week. And please get out there, find out what your local representatives are taking nationally and voting on. Very important.
Hey, I want to go over the donors right here. Thank you to our master rated donors. Thank you to our senior rated donors. Obviously, our basic donors. Thank you to all the donors for Marshall in the Middle, where this happens because of that. Ray, thank you for leading us in the NBC Room, dude. It is so much fun. This is the highlight of my week. I love it, dude. It is so much fun watching Nate's face when I say crazy ass shit.
Hey, man.
All right, love you guys. Good night.
All right,
good night, guys.
All right.
Marshall in the Middle.